Guys, I'm really happy to welcome to the podcast author Carrie Gress. Her book is called The End of Woman. She has a PhD in philosophy. She's a fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center in Washington, D.C. She's also a scholar at Catholic University of America. Her website, carriegress.com, CarrieGress.com. Carrie, welcome to the podcast. You've written a really interesting book called The End of Woman, and the theme of it appears to be that there is an attack on not just women, but womanhood, and this attack is coming from women in the name of feminism. Explain.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really great articulation of it. One of the things that I did in this book was really, first of all, ask the question, how do we get to this point where womanhood is being threatened and we're actually seeing, men be so-called the best women in many fields. So I went all the way back to the very, very beginning of feminism and just thought, initially I thought, I'm not going to find anything back here. The movement's changed so much. There's nothing to find here. And of course, when I started digging in, I just found scads of information that really helped me piece together how we got here. And I think, one of the main clues that I found was really this discussion about how do we help women? This is what the feminist movement has always been about. And I think why it appeals to so many people. The problem, though, even from the very beginning, was that they weren't asking, how do we help women as women? They were asking, how do we help women become like men? And it was really this idealization of the masculine that has led us to this situation, 200 years out, where we're still asking that question, not out loud. But that's the premise, is that men have a better life and we want to be like men. And so that's just rolled forward. And of course, in the 70s, there was a ton of rhetoric and the radical feminists were talking then about how do we get rid of gender altogether. And so this is just the culmination of the whole movement, is this idea of kind of just making this very abstract sort of human people, but that aren't really connected to male or female anymore. And that there's all this fluidity of genders and we can be really whatever we want. It's sort of this creating ourselves in our own image kind of idea.
Carrie, some of the critics of this transgender movement, I think of people like J.K. Rowling and others, they seem to be saying that feminism is wonderful. Perhaps even radical feminism is great. But here come these male usurpers with biologically male equipment pretending to be female, and they are spoiling the advancement of women. So they are, in a sense, critiquing the transgender extremism in the name of feminism. As I understand it, what you're saying is, guess what, guys? It's the very premises of feminism that have led in this direction. And I think what I found surprising in your book is you say that this is not a phenomenon of like the 1960s where people started burning their bras and kind of going crazy. This goes back to early feminism. Talk a little bit about that. Talk about early feminism and what did the early feminists want? Yeah, I again, to repeat, I think that idea, they wanted women to become more like men because they just thought men had much better lives. But there were really three pieces that I discovered that sort of carry through from almost the very beginning up to the current day. And, the first one is this idea of free love, getting rid of monogamy, getting rid of marriage and the nuclear family. That was a main piece. Another piece was the occult. And this was probably the most shocking part of what I found in the 1800s, because we really think of the 1800s as very Victorian and pristine. And yet, everybody from certainly the very earliest feminists, but also the names that we know, people like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony were involved in the occult. And then we, see that into the 1900s, of course, as well. And then the third piece is really this idea that we now call smashing the patriarchy, which is this idea of getting rid of the structures of society. And this started in the late 1790s, around 1790 itself, with Mary Wollstonecraft. And she was really writing off a lot of the ideas of the French Revolution and how do we get rid of the church? How do we get rid of any kind of hierarchy? And how do we start creating this radical equality that we see echoed throughout the era and ages? So that was really the 1800s. Those three pieces were there. And then the 1900s, you take those three pieces, free love, occult, and smashing the patriarchy, and they latch on
to Marxism. And so we just see sort of a new iteration of it happening in the 1900s, certainly first with the communists and then with the New Left in the 1960s. So it's just kind of maturing and congealing over the years and taking on kind of a different tone and brand, especially as the movement moves on. I mean, I've called it a brand. It's been able to renew itself over the centuries. And I think the Barbie movie is just another great example of how, feminism is branding itself anew for a younger generation.
Let's take a pause. When we come back, more with author Carrie Gress, the book, The End of Woman. As most of you know by now, Debbie and I love the MyPillow products. We have them all over our home. Just the other day, Debbie was like, hey, we need some kitchen towels. And wouldn't you know it, MyPillow's got a deal on them. They have 4- and 6-piece sets. They come in a variety of colors. If you use promo code Dinesh, you get 25% off on all of them. Hey, you can't have too many kitchen towels. Now's your chance to stock up. Just go to MyPillow.com, use promo code Dinesh, save 25% off the MyPillow kitchen towels. Or you can call the number 800-876-0227. You got to use the promo code Dinesh to get this special offer. There are, by the way, sales and discounts on all the other products for MyPillow. Discounts of up to 80%. Call 800-876-0227 or go to MyPillow.com. Don't forget to use the promo code DINESH Dinesh.